Alrighty, everybody, what is going on? Welcome back to another CYPRX video breakdown. This is going to be one of those videos that you are not going to want to miss. Breaking: the S&P 500 officially posts its lowest close of 2026, erasing $3.2 trillion in market cap since the Iran war began. How on earth are people navigating successfully through this most recent market turmoil? Has anybody been asking themselves that question? I know I sure have been seeing a lot of uncertainty, fear, and doubts on the internet. People left and right blowing accounts, losing money, so many different things going on in this chaos. Ask yourselves the question: are you positioned in the right community with the right educational foundation to learn how to navigate these current times correctly? If the answer to that question is you are unsure or not really, then pay attention to this video breakdown. I want to take your attention first over here to a statistic just to show you guys here inside the CYPRX community. We are 10,000 steps of the average retail communities. Proprietary trading firms or prop firms, they allow traders to use company capital in exchange for a share of profits. However, success rates are extremely low. Only 5 to 10% of active day traders pass evaluations, and just 7% of funded accounts receive payouts. Now, I want to take your attention over to some recent posts that I've put out to you guys from within inside the private CyberX community to show you guys that our institutional tooling, our foundational education, it's real. It is not hypey or gimmick. There's no fast track to wealth in our community. It takes discipline, it takes understanding of the market dynamics, proper application of risk management, and a real understanding of what is going on behind the scenes in terms of these macro fundamentals to navigate these waters correctly. And it is paying off exponentially in our community. Here I said they say 90% of retail traders fail, not because the market is impossible, but because most people trade without structure, without guidance, and without real understanding of how the market actually moves. And so, in the remainder of today's video breakdown, after showing you guys what's been taking place inside the private CyberX community, I'm going to show you guys a Zoom call that I had with the community today, breaking down one of my best trading days in 2026 so far. This Friday, navigating the turbulation in the markets correctly today, even though the market lost $3.2 trillion, coming out on top in the green and still in profit. All right. And I'm going to show you guys all of that in today's video breakdown. Back to this post. I said, now look at what's happening here. 5 new private CyberX members pass funded challenges. Again, remember the statistics that I just read for you all this month alone. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's what happens when education meets execution. While most traders are guessing, chasing moves, and reacting emotionally, our members are learning liquidity, understanding structure, and waiting for confirmation. That's the difference. The statistics don't change because the market is unbeatable. They exist because most people never get access to the right knowledge or the right environment. At CyberX, we are changing that. We are not here to be a part of the 90%. We are here to build the 10% of disciplined traders, one disciplined trader at a time. If you're serious about this, understand something: that the odds may be against the average trader, but you were never meant to be average. And that is exactly why we built the CyberX research team. And you can see the results. Joseph this week in our community passed a Top Step funded challenge, his third, as a matter of fact, and he has been a CyberX community member since July of 2025. One of our DeFi mentors most recently passed a funded challenge from Top Step. We come over here. This is another one of our CyberX researchers, Michael. He just became fully funded with $100,000. Last but not least, we have one of our order flow traders, Duality of Personality. And you can see right here, big congrats for passing a prop firm challenge. Now, it's not just about passing prop firm challenges. It's also about beating the statistics of taking payouts. You come over here, and I said one of our students just secured a $3,000 payout, not from luck, not from guessing, but from applying what's been taught, staying disciplined and trusting the process. Personally, one of my biggest trading days in the market, and the mentors at CyberX are right behind it. We have Mr. Aquaman fully funded, and now Kevin, one of our DeFi members, on top of our institutional scalper, all fully funded inside the private CyberX community. And that's the difference. We're not learning from theories. We are learning from people actively performing at a high level in real time. Right now, 4 fully funded mentors operating at 5 to 7 six-figure levels inside the community, and it shows. This is what happens when you put the right people and the right knowledge and the right environment together. The results start to repeat. Success in trading is not random, it is built. Here you can see congratulations to Lee CUK. One of our funded members just received his first payout just yesterday of $3,000 on his Express funded account. So, really great to see the hard work and the effort paying off literally inside the private CYPRX community. We're beating statistics. We're showing people how it's really done. And if you're tired of the hype, the hopium, the misalignment, the misinformation that exists out there on the internet, that's exactly why we're shadow banned here at CyberX, because they know that we're pumping out real value that can actually elevate people's existence, whether it's financially, physically, or mentally. Dive into the community. We're here for you guys to help you all grow, learn, and actually understand these markets and what it really takes to be successful. Before we jump over into the full video breakdown from one of my biggest trading days in the futures markets, I want to just leave you guys here with this motivational post where I said, the way that you choose to see things really does shape your entire life. Two people can go through the same situation and walk away with completely different realities. One sees setbacks, the other sees lessons. One feels stuck, the other finds a way forward. It's not always about what's happening, it's about how you choose to interpret it. Protect your mindset, be intentional with your perspective, because the way that you see the world quietly becomes the world that you live in. With that all being said, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's quick video breakdown. As always, trying to educate you all and hopefully propelling our viewers forward with their knowledge curve and understanding of how these market dynamics work. Take some notes. And if anybody's interested in our mentorship program, they want to learn how it is that we trade and analyze the markets inside the CyberX community, you guys can always come join us. Try out the community. There's nothing that's going to hurt you inside. At the end of the day, you'll only take a learning lesson away from tapping in with us or really come out on top and excel in your trading and investing career. We hope to see you guys on the inside. Head over to CyberXTrading.com. We'd love to have you on the team. Let's roll over into today's trade breakdown. All right, let me rephrase. So we're going to break down this sell trade today. One of my biggest days, one of my biggest single days in the market. Really great positions, really great confluences for sells. Couple that with fundamentals, some things that I was talking about in the Discord yesterday. Looking at what manipulation was happening prior to the session, looking at the structure prior to the session as well, and just basing my trades off of the higher time frame structure. I want to cover all that for you guys in this video breakdown. And then obviously, of course, utilizing the deltas and the dark pools and putting it all together. All right. So first, always starting with the fundamental backdrop. There has literally been nothing in terms of fundamentals this week or any previous week for that matter that screams we should be aggressively buying. And if we are going to attempt to buy into these relief rallies, I've told you guys multiple times in previous Zoom calls, move your stops to break even, take profit, because the market sentiment is risk off. And MNQ or NASDAQ in general is a risk asset class, right? It's a risk traded pair. Okay. NASDAQ, a basket of the tech stocks and some of the largest companies, you know, they're all traded as risk assets. So on the backdrop of today's fundamentals, I said to you guys yesterday, and it's just always very interesting how in this community we prep. This is why it's so important to know these things, because when you see them happen in real time, you already know the possible outcome, which just gives you ever more of an advantage. Yesterday in the fundamental section, I said after sharing this announcement from Netanyahu, I don't know how to say his name properly, but he said something about airstrikes are not enough and that ground action is going to likely be required. Okay, we know that this guy has his hand on Trump's shoulder, directing him at all times. Like it's not a secret. So I said to you guys yesterday, if the US or any other jurisdiction commit ground troops, that would mark a major escalation of this war. And interestingly enough, today, right when we had this drop during New York session, is the exact time that Trump put out this message about thousands of ground troops being deployed to the Middle East. Like literally right when this drop happened, this aggressive shift and move to the downside, it was at 8:45 on the dot is when Trump announced this. So somebody probably got that news in advance here in this area prior to the New York session open because this was the New York session open. Let me draw a vertical line on the charts. Where the heck is my line tool at? Here we go. So 8:30 was the session open right here, right? And you could see clear as day there was selling activity prior to that. So somebody probably got the news, a little tip off before the actual announcement at 8:45 came into play. So I want to break all this down and just show you guys on the higher time frame how even if you didn't catch this little tiny news headline that signaled escalations in this ongoing war between Iran and Israel that has created a risk-off backdrop, you could have utilized everything that myself and Scalper teach you in the community to catch today's move. So let me just hide this so that way we can only see it on the lower time frames. Okay. So now that you guys have the fundamental backdrop, all right, the fundamentals today screamed risk off. There was nothing positive about today's sentiment. Also, we obviously, of course, had the hawkish rhetoric from Jerome Powell. We had a higher inflation. We had upbeat labor market data, everything screaming profit taking in gold, stronger dollar, risk off sentiment. Okay. Now, on the higher time frame, I'm just going to do a little tiny 15-minute analysis. First off, taking a look always at previous session highs and lows and where price action is trading at prior to the New York session. We can see clear as day that price is making lower lows and lower highs. And I marked those off, the lower highs, by these yellow little tiny slanted tools. All right. So first piece of higher time frame mindset going into today's session, looking at the grand scheme of things, if we wanted to be buyers today, not only would we needed to have seen these previous lower highs, or excuse me, lower highs and lower lows broken and turned into supports. So something like this. But we would have also needed to see price on the 15-minute hold steady above the triple moving average, which as of time of recording and prior to the New York session, it did not. Okay. It did not. Yesterday, Asia session and New York session dumped from these highs, and then London session dumped from these highs. So you can see that when New York session started today, we were trading underneath of the triple moving average, and we had not broken previous bearish structure to the upside, right? Focusing more so on just London and New York highs, again, the most immediate price action. This was London session's high, and you can see the structure that it created. It violated all of this bullish activity where buyers made an attempt to break a previous sell base. They failed. They got trapped. They also made an attempt to break above the triple EMA. When price came back to retest the base, instead of flipping bullish and seeing a continuation higher, which is what we would have needed to see in order to see or look for buys, once this happened, then we would have waited for a pullback to get in on a continuation move higher, but we did not get that. Instead, we broke the previous support here. The move from London violated this low and created a new structure low. So what I was seeing today during New York session prior to the open was this was the one, the New York session high from yesterday. Or you could even look at it as this is now your new one from London session because here's the new move to the downside, the pullback. Now this starts a fresh bearish leg. This break of structure was your two. And then today, during New York session, completed the 1, 2, 3. And at the New York session onset was the 3 that took price to make a new structure leg to the downside. So overall, higher time frame, 15-minute is really all you needed today to see that we were not in some bullish trend and that anybody that was buying today was trying to guess bottoms instead of waiting for confirmation that previous bearish structure had been broken and violated and turned into support. All right. Any questions on the 15-minute time frame before we go lower? Is everybody seeing clearly that the price action prior to the New York session was not hinting at all at any bullish activity? And the only thing that would have conditioned buys today is if we see these deltas and dark pools, look at the reaction, right? That's why we have these. They tried to make a delta held pattern where you can see here, they retested the top of the dark pool in the delta here, and buyers made an attempt to try to push higher. But during London session, those buyers got trapped and sellers overpowered and completely broke all of the previous bullish momentum, smoothly pushing price through the delta and the dark pool. Any questions before we move on? Okay. Now going down to the lower time frame, now that we've marked all that off, we'll go down to the 1 minute time frame. Actually, we need to go down to the 30 seconds so you guys can see on my annotations. All right, so prior to the session, like I said, it almost seems like somebody had a little tip off of this announcement at 8:45, because prior to the session, we can see manipulation at the very tippy top of a delta. And so here, jumping down to the seconds charts, we can see also when buyers tried to make an attempt to push above this previous high, which we marked off here with this yellow line, you can now see how it correlates down to the lower time frame. We can see a 1, 2, 3 pattern as well, where sellers broke a previous support. This now becomes your new sell leg, with this last bearish candlestick being your sell base. Okay. And you can see after the support was broken prior to the session open here, it makes a new bearish leg. So now this is your 1. This is your 2. They come back to retest the sell base. Buyers get trapped. You can see that buyers do not engulf the previous sell volume. And instead, we see sellers overpower buyers and continue with the overall momentum to the downside, pushing back into the delta, where at the same time, we see a triple moving average crossover, where prior to this move, the triple moving averages were acting as a support. And then we see the rollover happen, and we see a previous support turn into a resistance. Then we see the New York session open. Price stops halfway through the delta. New York session opens, sell volume picks up. They entice buyers at the bottom of this delta. In reality, all that was happening was the buyers here in this area were simply trying and making an attempt to defend at the bottom of this delta. But you can see that they failed miserably. In the same exact pattern that we're not only seeing on the higher time frame, the 15-minute. Remember, I showed you guys the 1, 2, 3 on the 15-minute. I showed you guys the 1, 2, 3 prior to the session open here, where buyers are getting trapped, sellers are engulfing previous supports, buyers are making an attempt to defend, failing, getting trapped, retesting the sell base, and making new structure legs to the downside. Look at the same pattern that happens here. Here's the announcement that there's going to be U.S. ground troops deployed. And what do we see? Here's bullish structure that formed at the bottom of the delta. We push up into a dark pool at the 2445. We see sellers trap buyers and engulf all the previous buy volume, breaking not only 1, but 2 and 3 previous supports. So this support, and this support is now broken. This now becomes your new sell leg, right? We can see buyers made an attempt to defend the base here, but they failed miserably. When this happens, you should be thinking to yourself, okay, effort, here's the effort, here's the result. Again, effort, here's the effort. Buyers try to make an attempt to defend, and what is the result? Boom, another leg to the downside. When I saw this, at the same time, I saw a triple moving average crossover, checked the fundamentals. I saw this headline. I was sitting there screaming to myself, price is definitely going to go down into at least the next dark pool. So what I simply did, Jumping down now to the 5 seconds chart, is I waited for another little tiny pullback and then entered with a sell stop. So here was my position. You can see my entry was at the 24375. The reason why I entered, if you look very closely, let's get rid of this. You can see a previous buy base here. So the last bullish candle before the up move, we had a triple moving average. You can see that buyers made an attempt to defend at the bottom of this delta. Once price came back to retest the previous support, look at the reaction. First off, the support was broken with this wick, and we did not see an immediate bullish reversal or engulfment of previous sell volume at all whatsoever, which signals that buyers are not in control here and that sellers are still absorbing all the buy volume. So here's the test of the base to the left. If this was real bullish, not real bullish volume, because it's all real bullish volume, but if it was bullish in volume that we could play with, what would it have needed to do from this area before we buy? We're not just buying once price comes into a previous base. Rhetorical question, it would have needed to break a previous structure or a resistance, which flies here, then create some form of higher high, higher low formation for us to get in on, giving us confirmation that buyers are back in control, right? That did not happen here. Instead, we broke the previous base. Buyers got trapped. You can see clear as day that the two candlesticks, the two bullish candlesticks, did not engulf the bearish candlestick that led to the push lower. That was my, on the lower time frame, 1, 2, 3. I simply placed a sell stop right beneath this bullish candlestick wick. This bearish candlestick entered me in. As soon as that happened, I moved my stop loss nice and tight above the lower high, and my target initially was the bottom of the next delta. I did not hold the trade all the way into the bottom of the next delta. I saw trapped buyers here. So looking at just the price action structure, why I closed my position, you can see sellers tried to move lower. Buyers then absorb those sellers, and immediately following, we see two more sellers try to make an attempt to push price lower. Buyers create a higher low. Right there at this higher low is where I closed my sell. And then you can see buyers then started to regain control temporarily, trying and making an attempt to push price higher. In my personal opinion, this was honestly, now looking at it, just profit taking from the sells. But still, nonetheless, a really great trade, sticking to the higher time frame from top down. Also on the seconds chart, you can see clear as day that price is also below the triple moving average. So think about it. On the 4-hour and the daily, price below the triple moving average, which we went over in previous Zoom calls. Hourly and 15-minute, price below the triple moving average. On the 15-minute, I just showed you guys that the structure from previous New York, Asia, and London session was bearish. Dropping down to the lower time frame, taking a look at the very onset of New York session prior to the session open, we can see that buyers were getting trapped. Sellers were regaining control, breaking previous supports, and creating bearish order flow. Coming into the session open, we can see that there was a trap set. Buyers made an attempt to defend a previous base over to the left-hand side. Here at the bottom of this delta, they failed at engulfing the sell volume. Right at this tippy top of the high and a retest of the dark pool halfway through the delta, we had some bearish news come out that the U.S. is set to deploy thousands of additional troops to the Middle East. Right when that happened, we continue to see the same exact pattern. Previous supports violated. Once that happens, that's a shift in momentum that you should be paying attention to. You should be saying to yourself, okay, now that this shift in momentum has happened, we should not see price go higher than the base. Once buyers make an attempt to defend their base down here at the lows, you can see that there was no move that breaks previous resistance and turns it into support, and instead, a previous support starts to act as a resistance. Here's the support, starts to act as a resistance. On top of that, you have a triple moving average crossover. That's the bread and butter of the CYPRX 2.0. Boom, the momentum continues to the downside, breaks the low of the delta, breaks the previous base here now. So we have another violation of a support. Trading with that momentum, we see buyers make an attempt to defend. They fail to engulf the sellers. Sellers trap the buyers and continue with the overall down move. Simply placing a sell stop beneath the low, activation on that sell stop gave me the green light to push my sell stop position, my stop loss right above the high, and then simply target the next delta and dark pool to the downside. Any confusion on today's breakdown?